New day, new topic to be talked. What are we talking about today, Hari?
IDEs. IDEs.
I personally want to ask you, like, specifically, why did you choose the topic ID? Because it was like when we were discussing what to talk on Dev Exchange, we are like, let's talk on IDs. Why specifically IDs?
Basically, as a developer, most of our time we spend is only in one place, that is our text editor, IDs, and everything. I thought we should talk on it and discuss how to choose and everything related to it, and discuss our insights on how IDs work and everything.
Pretty good. So I think for any of the computer enthusiast, their life's first ID would be the notepad that they would use, like creating that HTML template,
Yes,
like
definitely.
back when we were in our school. It's like the first ID we started using. So yeah, how
Yes.
was your first experience on using the notepad ID?
Uh, it would be as normal as everybody, right? Like we didn't know, like in future we would be using this more often. Yeah, so I think it was pretty moderate, we can say.
Okay, so I think like for me, I initially like in school, I also did not like even I did not even like computers. Like I would be like,
Plus one.
what is this? Why to
Plus one.
do all this programming and everything? But that's the time like when we first learned uh, to use or write HTML tags, like using that marquee tag. Like our entire name would
Yes.
go from right to left, and you'd be like, I have done something. I am a programmer right now." So
Yes, we are.
going from there, now coming to like proper IDs like VS Code. Now, like I think there are a lot of IDs which have been evolved in the last, not I cannot say years, but it's like since the last 2 years after ChatGPT boomed a lot. So yeah,
Yes.
let's talk about more about IDs. So let's just give a short definition or short layman term definition for what is an ID for those who are new to like watching this kind of videos.
Okay. So basically, IDE is a place where we develop something. Basically, it's an environment where we can develop a specific project or anything related to it, and it's not restricted to any programming stuff, but we can do normal stuff too.
Normal stuff as in.
And it, as in, like normal यार notepad खोल दिया, कुछ edit कर दिया, that stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So how like what is like the difference between like if we specifically talk about IDs and text editors?
IDEs and text editor. Okay. So if I say it like this, mm, we cannot say that both are different thing according to me, but they are exactly different thing. Because we nowadays, if you know Vim, it's an text editor which is inbuilt into our terminal, any bash terminal. Okay. So we can modify it or we can configure it in such a way that it behaves like an IDE inside a terminal. Yeah, it's vice versa also. We can do it with VS Code also, but VS Code comes with many stuff, so we don't need to configure it much. But Vim is like we have to do it on our own, like configuring everything, extensions, LSP servers, and everything.
Hmm. I think that's a pretty good thing. Like, we'll just let's talk about our first, like, people say, like first, like the first time when you kind of meet someone, how was your experience? So, like the first time you used VS Code. Now I think obviously, guys, Hari has now completely shifted into using Vim. He's not a Windows guy anymore. He's a very Linux guy. So he when we talk, he's like, "Bhai,
Ah
Vim
man,
is
don't
something
boast me
different."
too much. Don't boast me too much, bro.
So when we talk, he's like, Vim is something different, bro. You can do a lot of things. He's like, leave VS Code. I'm like, no, I'm a Windows guy. I personally go for VS Code. So like the first time then when we kind of started using VS Code was I think in the second semester when we learned C programming, and that's the first time like we were introduced to programming, and we used to write the code, and we were like, bro, this is something what we used to see on sci-fi movies. So typically in movies, as we see, it was like people are just running the tree command on the command prompt and turning the text into green. So that's the first time we thought like, no, this is something crazy. So like when I started using VS Code, it was initially a bit not confusing, but it was something very new apart from Notepad, because Notepad we see like, yeah, you have to just save it. But in particularly in using IDEs, they internally, or they have their benefits of their own, wherein you can kind of create a lot of crazy stuff around it. And many of the big applications that you see all over the world are only possible by using IDs. And I think they have evolved a lot in the past 2.5 years. Like initially we had VS Code, but now it's the era of using AI. So people have come up with Cursor AI and many more AI based IDs. So yeah, how was your first encounter with using any kind of an IDE? I think first one would be, apart from Notepad, would be VS Code, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, speaking about first encounter, how I came in touch with VS Code was through a channel who everyone has visited, Code with Harry. So basically, we were watching we were watching C tutorials because we knew in our college they won't be implementing much stuff. So we sort of go to YouTube and just watch tutorials. Then in one such tutorial, I saw that this guy is using something that I don't have on my laptop, bro. I was like, man, I need it. I need it. He mentioned it that it's a code editor and everything. I downloaded it. I was like, man, bro, thing like this exists. I was like, notepad के ऊपर कुछ है नहीं. But the thing is, when I installed it, I saw that there were many extensions. I can beautify anything. I can customize things. I can add custom keybinds and everything. I was fascinated by it. So this was my first encounter,
Okay.
if you
I
say.
think during a college time also, I don't think like VS Code is the only ID that we have come across, because
I feel there
during a
were
college,
many.
yeah,
There were
during a
many
during a college we had like various kind of subjects, not subjects, we had different programming languages to learn. And for each programming language, if we went to YouTube, we would see like, no, this is a different
different
editor that
different
we
stuff.
are
Yeah.
using. So two
Yes.
such things that I think we can talk more about is one such is which is called IntelliJ IdeaSense, the
Yeah.
one that we use for Java.
Yes.
And I think
To be
one
frank,
more is,
I never have used it. Like it was only one time that I used it for. It was for only Java project, something I don't remember. But most of the time I was like VS Code only.
hmm,
VS Code or Sublime, that stuff.
hmm. I think the first one, if you remember, we when we created the C programming tutorials on our channel, so they were not in either VS Code or not in Sublime Text. They were made in some another ID called Atom. That was the
Atom.
first one that we
Oh yes,
used.
yes, 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 yes. Actually, no, it wasn't the first one. We used VS Code, but for tutorials, I think it was Atom. Atom is also a
Is
good
it?
editor. Yes, it was.
Okay. So like, yeah, we were talking about that IntelliJ idea sense. I almost encountered it, and like, it's not that these IDs are bad and only the VS Code is good. I think for every ID, they are made with the purpose of solving or uh, being compatible with a particular programming language. Like let's say IntelliJ idea sense is particularly for Java, wherein you can kind of get that structure and you can have a terminal and run all those things. Whereas PyCharm itself is used for Python. Then we have something called Jupyter Notebook, which is basically used for like data preprocessing and all those stuff. And I think every terminal, every IDs plays a specific role, and it's not that all the IDs are bad and only VS Code is good, or else VS Code is bad and another ID is good. I
Yes,
think when I
because
was
every
also,
every ID and text editor have their own pros and cons, right?
yeah. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
To be frank, if I say the thing which you said, like every ID is meant for like to be capable of programming in one programming language, like this you said, right? So my view is like it is not meant for one programming language. We can say that it only helps you, like if we take an example of IntelliJ idea, if it will give a structured way of programming in Java, yeah, Java or Python. Yeah. At the same time, VS Code has everything. Like basically, it has notebook and everything. It's like we have an Android app, we have an iOS app, and we have Flutter, which is both cross-platform. Yeah. So my view is like everything has its own pros and cons, but what to use and how to use is on us, right? If it's our choice to use VS Code, then we cannot deny it, right? If you are comfortable with it, then yeah, you will use.
Hmm. So let's talk about the need of an hour right now, like the need of an hour in terms like for any programmer or for any you can say early stage developer or a student who is just starting out to go get into the IDEs part. So how can they particularly choose an ID and how can they move forward? Because at this point of time, it's like there are a lot of things in the market and everything is crazy. Like everything is crazy. I'll tell you, I am still using VS Code because it's like I have a liking for VS Code as well. But in my job, we use Vim Nano only because everything is based on the Linux part. Like the working is 90% on Linux. So how can anyone choose between what kind of IDs they want to use and how should their thought process move forward like?
So if you ask me, my thought process is very like unconventional. Like my choice is Vim, but I am using VS Codium. But in VS Codium, I am using Vim keybinds. You know, so basically, I will explain how to. Okay, so if you are aiming for something, then I think like IDs and text editors should depend on that. It may or may not. For me, it is like if we are making a project in React, right? If we are making a project in React, then I think you should use an ID because the project structure is very big. We cannot use any ID there where we don't get any suggestions, because if we don't get suggestion, then obviously some kind of error will occur. That's true. Okay, no one can deny that. Okay, but at the same time, if you are going for like core core programming like C++, and like DSS stuff, I think you shouldn't use any IDs or some. Your normal notepad is fine. But in my case, why I am using Vim is because I saw a meme where it mentioned true programmers don't use mouse. Okay, don't use mouse. So I was like, I want to do everything with keyboard only. Okay, keyboard only. So my like purpose perspective was like, भाई कोई देगा ना मेरे को, फट जानी चाहिए उसकी. Like, how did he do that, man? How how do we know this much shortcuts and everything? So once I decided it, I just did some research and found a YouTuber, Prime Engine. He is a great developer, by the way. He's a great developer and he uses Vim. Man, his speed is like, bro, crazy. I was motivated and started using Vim. Okay, so when I started using Vim, first thing I noticed was I cannot configure it in Windows. Okay, because I had PowerShell and I was like, and that time I didn't read any like documentation and everything. So I used Vim for 1 week and I gave up. After that, after 6 months, I took it up again. In Windows, I used WSL, used Vim in that. Once again, I gave up after 2 months, came back to VS Code, and when now I'm working in a startup where regularly have discussion about this with my senior. So I came up with more terminologies, like more conditions, like how to choose any editor. So now I am using VS Codium plus Vim. Okay, Vim Motions, not Vim Motions. Okay, but but I would like to switch on Vim completely. But the thing is, I'm not still not confident enough. But I know many stuff on that. Yeah, my choice on VS Codium is because it's not like we have Microsoft login in it. We don't have that, and we don't have AI support in it, because I believe that I'm not quoting any stuff, but I believe that the code is being stolen by AI stuff. Yeah, that's why I don't recommend, or it's my thought. I'm not quoting that any editor is doing that, but yeah, I think like that. That's why I'm using VS Codium plus Vim Motions.
Okay. I think I'll share my point of view on this. It's like for any particular programmer or anyone who is just starting out to understand what IDEs to choose, I think the first thing would be all about what is the thing they are doing. In terms that are they building big projects? Are they building scalable projects? Is the project made for, let's say, web? Is the project made for mobile application? Uh, and also in that we can like sub categorize that. Is it made for React? Is it made for, sorry, Android, or is it made for iPhone? Because if we categorize it, there are a lot of things. Okay, I'll
Yes.
just do one thing. I think if it's possible, I can share the screen as well in this, and let's see what is to be done. Share screen. I think it's visible over here. Correct.
Yes.
So for, let's say, initially we are having for web web development. So for web development, I will specifically uh, tell people that go for the best editor out there, which is VS Code. VS Code, I think, is the best one you can use for WebD. Now, when it comes to kind of mobile development, there are two things where you can use um, Android Studio for Android, or and you can use, let's say, um, Xcode. There is an ID called as Xcode for iPhone. Yeah. So for Xcode, or for particularly talking about iPhones, or we can say not iPhone specifically, we can say iOS development, we can go for Xcode. Then there is something which we call for like data processing or ML. There is something called Jupyter. I tell it Jupyter, but people are like, no, call it Jupyter. So there is something called Jupyter Notebook, that, or Jupyter, anything like that you can use, which can basically help you with your projects on ML, data preprocessing, and everything. Then I think there are a lot of different stuff as well where you can go for. Like, let's say there is one such popular ID which I came across for like .NET and C sharp, C sharp, which is something called Rider. This is one such ID that I recently came across, and I'm like, bro, this is also still alive. Because what people used to think is like, no, this kind of IDs are like old, and what can we use? So I think this is one such thing that these are some things that people can think of before choosing their IDs, and I think this may help choosing the IDs a lot better and making their decisions a bit better, because this is what I particularly choose on selecting any particular ID for my projects. And there are a lot of things like, let's say, for my portfolio project, if you visit adityatrivedi.in, what you can see is there is a RAG model implemented. It's not that I have used VS Code for that. I tested that RAG model on Jupyter Notebook because as I said, that uh, what we say, every IDE has its own benefits. So it's better to use different IDEs for different kind of programming, and you kind of understand how the different user experience for different ID is, and I think this may help a lot of things, and a lot of students to clear out what IDs to move forward with. And as you said, I'll just agree on that. Like when you said about you want to be the person who don't want to use the mouse, and I'm still the person who uses mouse, by the way. And I think there is a lot of meme material that came out. Like there is a guy, when I was casually scrolling on Instagram, I saw there's a guy who has keyboards on his shoulders, and he's like coding like this. And like within, like, let's say 5 to 10 years, Hari will be the like, hey guys, today in this video we are coding this and we'll do this.
No, basically what he's doing, if you notice, hey, I know basically what kind of stuff he's using. Basically he has booted i3 in any, you can boot any, you can boot i3 on any Linux distro. Basically i3 allows you to use keyboard more often. Yeah, basically you can bind anything to, you can use any shortcut, you can create new windows with shortcuts, you can move windows, resize windows, do anything. Basically it's an tiling manager for your any Linux distro. So using keybinds you can like do crazy stuff. And plus on that he was using Vim. So you know what I'm gonna say next.
Yeah.
Yeah, so basically in this video we are promoting Vim.
Uh, Yeah, it's like Vim versus VS Code. No, no, just kidding. It's nothing that we are
Yeah, it's
promoting
not
anything.
like
It's
that,
just like
man.
we are just
Yeah.
sharing our views on what
Yes.
IDs can be
Yes.
used for. I think
Yes.
for
VS Code
me,
VS Code has its own pros and Vim has its own pros,
mm,
because VS Code and Vim both are customizable. But the
yeah,
thing is, VS Code is outside of terminal, Vim is inside of terminal. If you are
mm,
a terminal geek, like you like to play around with terminal and make customization commands and everything, you can go for Vim or Nano stuff, or else you
mm,
can visit VS Code.
I think Vim is, as far as I've used in, Vim is more kind of user friendly, not user friendly, but programmer friendly, I think. And you can make a lot of customizations, more customizations than compared to VS Code over there. Because what I've seen is, let's say, in I guess recent one of the reels that you had published, you had talked about automating the GitHub commands that we use. So that is like easily done in Vim, and to to do that on Windows, I think you have to have that bash command, and you can not directly do it on the CMD, but you have to do it on like using the git bash terminal specific. So I think Vim
Hmm.
has a better advantage in this sense over using Windows terminal. But I think yeah, more uh, both are better in their own ways, and I think there are a lot
Yes.
of, I think, customizable terminals that are coming right in this time. One such that I'm using currently, I signed up for its Windows waitlist, is something called WARP, and it's basically a complete AI based terminal. Okay, and talking about AI based terminal, it's something like you can get everything in your terminal. I'll see if I can show you over here, and let's see. Yeah, I think yeah, it's live on my um what do you say um my screen. So this is how basically the terminal looks like. It's basically like, if you see, it's just like a normal one. Okay. but it has a lot of AI capabilities inside it. And it's like if I write Control plus I, what you see here is you can actually get all the LLMs integrated right inside your terminal. So what we do is when we go to YouTube or when we go to ChatGPT, we ask the ChatGPT to like give us what the response is. Rather, it's like you can get everything on your terminal. Never even have to go open Chrome and get everything. It's like everything is taken care of by WAP itself, and it basically it's like almost 2 weeks I've been using. It's been 2 weeks I got the access, and I'll tell you I have completely ignored using terminal or PowerShell or anything like that. It's like WAP is the one that I use always, and it's yeah, there are some things that you have to give it the permissions to your like giving the files access to write the file access. But once it is done, it's like pretty good, and it also gives you suggestions. Like let's say if you're trying to install a node module, and the node module is not being installed, so it gives you suggestions like try deleting the node modules and using npm install again. This is what I think will be the future of using text editors, and it will eventually grow a lot. And yeah, what are your thoughts on these kind of futuristic tools that are coming now? Close this video with one quote that I recently came across. Not recently came across. I just asked ChatGPT to give me a quote. It's like at the end of the day, your ID is just like your best friend. Pick the one that does not crash on you, does not slow you down, and most importantly, does not make you question your life choices every time you open it. So yeah, I think it's a lot of things to be discussed on Dev Exchange episodes. It's just that we both are always on some time constraints to create videos on, and it's like our laptop also has some memory constraints to process the size of the files that we get after recording. So I think yeah, this was one such video on where we talked about IDs and cloud IDs and different types of IDs. And I think this might help a lot of students here over to choose the best IDE for their use case. And yeah, if you like the video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And see you in the next video. Until then, bye bye.